December 28, 1944. Allied Supreme Commander Dwight Eisenhower receives an explosive memo from Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. The demand that American commanders be immediately relieved of duty. Their crime wasn't losing battles or tactical failure. It was, unbelievably, failing to provide their soldiers with dry socks. This seemingly minor complaint was the spark that nearly tore the Anglo-American alliance apart at the height of the Battle of the Bulge. Today, we're diving deep into the accusation that backfired spectacularly on one of Britain's most famous generals. Using Montgomery's own letters, General Omar Bradley's furious memoirs, and once classified medical records, we'll uncover a story of ambition, politics, and a fundamental clash of military philosophies. So, what exactly was going on? The winter of 1944 was brutal. The fighting in the Ardennes Forest was a nightmare of mud, snow, and freezing rain. Soldiers on both sides were suffering, and one of the worst afflictions was trench foot. It's a nasty condition caused by prolonged exposure to cold, damp, and unsanitary conditions. Left untreated, it could lead to nerve damage, infection, and even amputation. By the end of 1944, the U.S. Army had recorded over 45,000 cases of trench foot. 45,000, that's more than the combat casualties of many major battles. For Montgomery, this was more than a medical crisis. It was a political opportunity. He saw these staggering numbers as proof of what he'd believed all along, that the American generals were amateurs. In his view, they were reckless, obsessed with rapid advances at any cost, and fundamentally incompetent in managing the welfare of their men. A proper, professional commander, like himself, would prioritize logistics, consolidation, and soldier care. The American mad dash across France, he argued, had stretched supply lines to the breaking point, leaving soldiers without proper winter gear, hot food, and yes, dry socks. In his communications with the British High Command, and even with Eisenhower himself, Montgomery used the trench foot crisis as his prime exhibit. He painted a picture of an American command structure in chaos, unable to perform the basic duties of leadership. His proposed solution was simple. Give him overall command of all Allied ground forces. He, Montgomery, would bring order, professionalism, and proper care to the front. He would end this amateurish leadership and win the war the right way. This argument was a direct attack on generals like Omar Bradley and George Patton. Bradley, the commander of the U.S. 12th Army Group, was utterly incensed. He saw Montgomery's memo not as a genuine concern for soldiers, but as a naked power grab. To be labeled an amateur, to have his competence questioned over socks while his men were fighting and dying in the largest battle on the Western Front, was an insult he could not stomach. He went to Eisenhower and flatly stated that he could not serve under Montgomery. If Eisenhower gave in to the British demand, Bradley would resign. The message was clear. You can have Montgomery, or you can have your American generals. You can't have both. Eisenhower was caught in the middle of a political firestorm. The alliance was fragile, and a public split between its top commanders would be a disaster, a gift to the Germans. He had to navigate this crisis carefully. But as he and his staff examined Montgomery's claims, a devastating counterargument began to form. It centered on a single, undeniable fact: Montgomery's own recent operational history. Just a few months earlier, in September 1944, Montgomery had masterminded Operation Market Garden. It was his signature plan, a bold, complex airborne operation designed to seize bridges over the Rhine and end the war by Christmas. It was supposed to be the model of a well-planned, professional operation, the very opposite of the American reckless advance. But Market Garden was a catastrophic failure. In just 9 days of fighting, the operation resulted in over 17,000 Allied casualties, many of them killed, wounded, or captured. These were permanent losses. 17,000 men lost in 9 days under Montgomery's direct command. Now, let's compare that to the trench foot crisis. While 45,000 cases sounds horrific, the official U.S. Army medical records tell a different story about the outcome. The vast majority of trench foot cases were treatable. Soldiers were pulled from the line, sent to rear area hospitals, and with proper care, warmth, rest, and dry conditions, nearly every single one of them recovered and eventually returned to duty. So, on one hand, You have Montgomery's professional operation costing 17,000 permanent casualties in 9 days. On the other, you have the amateur Americans, whose logistical failures led to a crisis where almost everyone recovered. The comparison was devastating to Montgomery's argument, which was the greater failure of command, losing an entire division of men permanently, or temporarily losing men to a preventable but recoverable condition. The final nail in the coffin for Montgomery's ambition came on January 7, 1945. With the Battle of the Bulge largely won, Montgomery held a press conference. Instead of using it as an opportunity for unity, he portrayed himself as the savior of the battle. He claimed that he had tidied up the mess left by the Americans and restored order to the front. He spoke of the battle in terms of we, the British, fighting on one flank and the Americans on the other, as if they were separate teams. The reaction from the American command was volcanic. Patton wrote in his diary that he could have shot him. Bradley was disgusted. The press conference was an unmitigated disaster that brought Allied relations to their lowest point of the war. The uproar was so great that Prime Minister Winston Churchill himself had to intervene. In a powerful speech to the House of Commons, Churchill went to great lengths to praise the American effort, emphasizing that the Battle of the Bulge was an American victory, won primarily by American soldiers and American courage. It was a public and humiliating rebuke of his own top general. Eisenhower, for his part, sent Montgomery a letter that left no room for interpretation. Any future incident like this would result in Montgomery's immediate dismissal. The power play was over. Montgomery had lost. So, what's the final verdict? Was Montgomery right? Were the American generals amateurs who needlessly endangered their men? Or were they pragmatists who made a difficult but ultimately correct choice? The truth is that the American strategy of rapid advance, while costly in terms of comfort and logistical strain, almost certainly shortened the war. By constantly pushing, keeping the German army off balance, and refusing to stop and consolidate for weeks at a time, they brought the Nazi regime to its knees months earlier than a more methodical approach would have. Every day the war was shortened meant thousands of lives, save not just on the battlefield, but in concentration camps and occupied cities across Europe. The American commanders made a brutal calculation. The welfare of bringing soldiers home fast was more important than the comfort of keeping them on the front line longer. A soldier with trench foot could recover. A soldier killed in an extra 3 months of fighting could not. In the end, history proved them right. Montgomery's accusation of amateurism, born from a mix of genuine concern and personal ambition, completely backfired. It revealed a deep philosophical divide in how to wage war, and ultimately solidified the American way: fast, aggressive, and decisive as the one that would deliver final victory. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this piece of forgotten history interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the conflicts and controversies of the Second World War. Let us know in the comments what you think. Was Montgomery right to raise the alarm? Or was it a purely political move? We'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next video.